People are living longer, which means retirement can stretch 30 to 40 years. This brings new challenges from the fear of outliving savings to the silent impact of inflation to the risks of market volatility and sequencing. At the center of it all is the need for sustainable withdrawal strategies and well-structured portfolios. Today, I'm catching up with Max Mojapelo, Exec for Investment Solutions at PPS, on how advisors can help retirees make their last chapter their best chapter. Thank you for your time, Max.
No, thank you. It's always a pleasure, and thank you for having me on this platform again. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. We're always talking about a very relevant and important topic. Many retirees fear outliving their savings, while others underspend out of fear.
Mm.
How can advisors help clients strike that right balance between I really want to travel, but I'm so nervous that I'm going to run out of money? Is that answer clear?
Yeah, I mean it's a difficult one, and I have to take my hat off to financial advisors because I mean they are really at the cold face of everyday people as problems and having to guide them in this journey we call life, and especially the most difficult part, which is the financial side. So on the question that you just asked now, I think it's important for advisors to keep true to cash flow modeling in their conversations. That for as long as we are able to take into account all the cash flows that we can expect from the retirement savings that we've put aside, and we take into account the cash requirements, the cash flow requirements, that covers, not just the bare necessities of buying food and surviving, but also the things that bring us joy, us being able to take care of our grandkids, if you're lucky enough to have grandkids, being able to travel and do all of those things that you put aside as you were building up your retirement nest. So it is very important that advisors have a look at those cash flow requirements in line with what that the client or the member would be wanting to actually do in the golden ages, as we refer to it.
What role do sustainable withdrawal strategies play, and what tools can advisors use to guide clients?
Yeah. So, I mean, sustainable drawdown rates are extremely important in that, outliving your money is a reality that, every annuitant will face, especially if they are not, using guaranteed products and they are actually in a living annuity product. And the old research will show you that 4% is probably that number. Um, we've created solutions that take into account the advisors' fees, the platform's fees, and the DFM's fees, because those are DFM solutions. And it's very important that we do that. And so we've designed three sets of products that target 3.5, 4.5 sustainable income for a period of up to 40 years, because what our data shows is that professionals on average live 10 years longer than the more typical 30 years that most South Africans actually live. Um, but that withdrawal rate, the old research will say 4%, but that 4% didn't even take into account the fees of the value chain. They didn't take into account the fees of the platform, the fees of the DFM, the fees of the advisor. And so the 4% actually wasn't necessarily a 4% into the hands of the annuitant, or it was 4%, but then there were other withdrawals over and above that. And you can see how dangerous that could be. So what we've done is that we've said, well, it's 4.5, 4 and 3.5 in the hands of the annuitant, because we've taken into account an extra 1% of withdrawal demand on that retirement savings, but still ensuring that it can last for up to 40 years.
You've touched on the fact that professionals live longer.
Yeah.
You can understand the reasoning behind that. So how do you see longevity risk evolving with advances in healthcare and changing lifestyles?
Yeah. So I mean that one is it's happening
Yep,
it's happening and it's coming quite fast. It's something that we cannot ignore. It's a good thing, by the way,
yep,
because it showcases that there's advances in the sciences, there's advances in human behavior. People are
yep,
taking their health quite seriously.
yep,
Um, and if you look at, even if you were to look at the life annuity rates, in most cases, they are pricing almost similar to like a 20 to about a 30-year bond, effectively. And if you really want to look at it, and that shows you the expectations from the actuaries at the life insurers. They
yeah,
expect people to live for 25 years on average. But that is not going to be the case anymore.
yeah,
So if we, we have, we've got a good problem that is helping us to solve something that we think is coming for everybody. In that, yes, professionals, they take care of themselves. If you think of doctors, they're some of the healthiest people that you'll find. But
yeah.
it happens that, it's mostly, it happens across professionals that they do take care of their bodies and what have you. So this 40-year problem that we see, and also the mere fact that, even if it's a male life that goes to 30 years, the the heir to that money is usually a female that tends to live even longer. I think the whole industry needs to wake up to the fact that people are living longer, and we need to recalibrate how we design portfolios, how we design solutions, and how we dispense of advice. Because 40 years is the reality. We need to be thinking around those timelines.
It's really great to see that there is really, and I've seen it from more than one provider, that there's really starting to be a little bit more focus on the fact that it is a reality and we have to find ways to make the longer years more sustainable for people.
100%. Yeah.
But that word inflation, how can portfolios be structured to deliver inflation-beating returns
Mm.
without taking on excessive risk?
Yeah, it's that's a tough one.
Yeah,
Um, it's a tough one because of how you have to look at the philosophy of the investment manager.
yeah,
The investment philosophy of the investment manager has to be inflation cognizant. Because if you're not inflation cognizant and you're worried about what your peers are doing, you're worried about what the next asset manager or investment house is doing, you are unlikely to beat inflation expectations or inflation linked benchmarks, if I can put it like that.
yeah,
Um, and you can see it if you look at the average ASISA category, the average ASISA categories, and you just look at that mean return or the average return. It's
yeah,
in most cases, if you look at each and every one of the profiles, it's below the CPI, the appropriate CPI plus X benchmark. So if you're looking at the ASISA MA low equity category average return versus the CPI plus 3%, in most cases it's consistently underperforming that number, and it shows you that in most cases, um, most investment houses, they don't look at that number. They're trying to beat the next asset manager. And that doesn't help anybody. So on our side, we are real returns focused, which implies that we don't really care what our competitors are doing. We worry about the inflation number. We worry about the fact that we can preserve the purchasing power of money and grow it in real terms. So, and how do you do it? If you've got that as your investment philosophy, it means that even when you select managers, you are likely to select managers that think like you, that have an asymmetric return profile. So they tend to give up a little bit of the upside, but they tend to not give up that much when the market is going down. And that is how you then ensure that you can still provide those inflation beating returns without unduly adding too much risk in solutions or in products.
I love that philosophy. It's really about the client
100%.
at the end of the day. Um, Another reality is that when markets are down, people start panicking, right? And
Mm,
especially if you're in the wrong side of retirement.
mm,
So, what can advisors do to reassure clients when those short-term market downturns hit?
mm. Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, this is where we can, you can you can check to or discuss, things such as the sequencing of returns. So when you're looking at pre-retirement, okay, pre-retirement, whether if the market is up by 2% and then next month is down by -1, it's a good entry point into the market.
Mm,
In post-retirement, it doesn't happen like that. There
yeah,
are no more additional inflows going in. There are no more additional investments coming in. There is no salary and a portion of that being your contribution into your retirement product. There's none of that. There's only one single asset that is sitting in the market. So that means that you might have that -2, and that -2, you will feel it on that saving or that nest that you've built up that is supposed to sustain you for that 30 to 40 years. So during those times, we have to, and this is what I'd say to advisors, again, reassure the client. We have to
yeah,
stay true to the financial plan.
yeah.
We know that returns don't come in a straight line, but we've got a plan and we've selected or we've partnered as an advisor. I've partnered with the best solution provider, and I know that the returns won't be coming in a straight line, but I hold my DFM partner, I hold my solutions provider to a particular requirement over, say, a 2 to 3 years timeline that these short-term fluctuations, they will come, but I know they will, because of how they think, because of how they package solution, that those numbers will be eradicated as time goes by, and we'll start picking up those the returns again.
It's quite shocking that there are still people that goes into this phase of their life without an advisor. I mean, if you just think, if you have the knowledge, it's one thing, but if you
Mm,
are clueless about that, and those markets hit, I mean, the easiest thing is to panic and pull out the money, and that is the important role of the advisor to really step in, right?
100%. Full on. Full on.
How important is flexibility in withdrawals from when inflation and volatility strike?
Yeah. So I mean, you always have to, like, there's only that one annual review where we can change and we can make,
Yeah.
make changes and what have you. So if we're looking at really difficult market conditions, we have to think very hard not to crystallize losses when we know it's totally out of our control. If it's the solutions provider who's not doing their job, yes, like,
Mm.
let's look to change to make changes there. But if it's because Putin woke up and was in a bad mood and decided to bomb another country, you see, and the market tanks, or a president, says, well, it's Liberation Day today, and I'm going to uh, impose tariffs even on islands where there's only penguins. Like those things are fully out of our control. It's the 0.1% of the times in the markets that things happen. And if you are doing that income review during that time, and it's not good, it's something that might sustain. It is a COVID time. It is like something that might actually sustain, and that's going to be the new context. Yes, we can revise things down. We can revise that income down. Don't crystallize losses. You cannot afford it because remember,
Yeah,
we already spoke about it. There is no more additional cash flows.
yeah,
There's only one asset, and from that asset, we need to sustain a level of cash flows for a very long time.
yeah. A reminder of how early we need to start working on that retirement plan. Please explain to me what sequency risk means, and maybe we can have a practical example of why it is so critical for retirees,
Okay.
Max.
Yeah. So again, so it speaks to pre-retirement, the beautiful time of when you're still, very much active economically, and the market recognizes that, and they compensate you. for the skills, for the knowledge, for the networks that you've got. You get your salary, you get your commission, you get your this. You're still very much a economically active individual because you've got regular cash inflows. Whether the market is going up or down, actually, when it's going down, it's even a better time because you're buying at depressed prices. We always say it's the best time to invest.
Yeah.
In post-retirement, there is no more additional cash inflows from the economical asset, which is yourself, and you only have that one asset that you've built up. So now it does matter how those returns in the market actually come, because you are a forced seller at any point in time. You're a forced seller. You need to draw down from the market each and every time. So that's where we say the sequence in which returns come matters to you. So even if when we look at, and we're looking at a recommendation or whatever the case might be, and we say, well, this manager on average, they give us 10% or whatever the case might be, or they're trying to get to CPI plus 4%. How does that CPI plus 4% come in the 3 years that they say they will give you that? It matters how it comes. Is it a smooth ride or is it a bumpy ride? A bumpy ride in post-retirement is extremely dangerous because you're a forced seller out of the market and you don't want to be what? Crystallizing losses. Why don't you want to crystallize losses? For every 1% that you lose, to get back to the original capital value, you need 1.01%. If it's 25%, you need 50%. If it's 50% loss, you need 100% return to get back to the original place. So the losses are almost like convex, and on the other side, you need a steeper growth to get back to the original point. So you cannot afford a bad sequence of returns.
Okay.
That's actually what we mean by that risk.
Important. What portfolio techniques can help cushion against negative returns early in retirement?
Well, there's a couple of things. Again, if you look at the whole investment process, on our side as solutions providers, typically known as your DFMs. Okay, so we've got our manager research and then we've got portfolio construction. On the manager side or the manager selection side, well, we need managers that when things are going down, sometimes they don't go down. They either return zero or they give you a positive return.
Yeah.
Those are typically hedge funds. So you need some hedge funds. You also need managers when, say, like think of COVID time. COVID came, it was a V shape, right? Went down, went up. You want managers that when things that normalizing slightly, they're able to go into the market very quickly and take opportunities here and there. So you need flexible managers. They can quickly go down to 0% in equities and hold only cash. And then when the time is enabling, they go from 100% cash into 100% equities. So you need managers that move very much independent and not in the same direction as the traditional managers, which is your hedge funds. And then you need very quick, nimble managers, and where the mandate allows them. So you're flexible managers. So those are the two. So that's the one lever that we've got. On the other side, from a portfolio construction point of view, now portfolio construction, if I was to put it in the simplest ways, it's almost like how you dress. Do you put your t-shirt on before you put your jacket, or do you put your jacket and then put your t-shirt on? Exactly. There's instances where something going on first is silly, right? And so portfolio construction is the same. In certain instances, try to get the largest return for some level of risk. Mean variance optimization makes sense. It doesn't make sense in post-retirement. There, the definition of risk is different. You see, so I'm not allowed, if I can, again, putting it plain and simple, you're not allowed to be too colorful in post-retirement. So you can't do wild things. So you can't use, say, mean variance optimization. So you have to use shortfall risk. You have to be cognizant of the member or the client being in a state of being in a shortfall to live the life that they want to live. So the optimization and how you put things together has to be different. It will also dictate the types of managers that you can then bring, because it'll unitize. Some of the big brands that you know, and you're like, but this is a good manager. So, no, no, no. The way that they run the money, it's not suitable.
Yeah.
Okay,
Experience matters.
it does matter.
How can advisors help clients avoid behavioral traps like anchoring to a magic number or being overly optimistic in their planning? Because
Mm,
I'm sure that happens, or because you want to speak the client's language or in favor of the
yes,
client, but we have to be realistic, right?
yes. No, no, that's true. So again, where can you be? What is that tooling or that platform that ensures that the conversation is objective?
Yeah,
I still take it to cash flow modeling.
yeah,
That's it's the one bit where, for as long as we say, well, we know what we're trying to do. We're trying to get to say inflation plus 4% from the asset manager. But when you and I are talking, you might be anchoring on this. You might have like overly confident on XYZ, overly pessimistic on this, but the cash flows are the cash flows.
yeah,
If we take it back there, we are going to be objective. That's what's in our control. That is the thing that's going to determine whether we're going to have a good retirement or a bad retirement. And
yeah,
it's just sits on that behavior around that. It happens even in pre-retirement as well.
yeah.
We for as long as we're looking at what you're doing with the cash, we can know when to reel our overconfidence, when to pull up our over pessimism, back to a realistic view and a more um, a more stable outlook on what might happen.
So we spoke a lot about money and the fact that you have to have a plan. We haven't touched on the not money part, and I think we have had a few conversations about that. Your
Yeah.
client moves into retirement, the money
Yes.
part is okay.
Yes.
But what is the other part of the conversation that
Oh
is
yeah.
so critical that we as an advisor need to have with our clients?
Yeah. So the stages of retirement.
Yeah.
I've been privy enough, to engage with members of pension funds and what have you, and to sit with advisors who have been in this space for a very long time, and I've learned a few things. But the one that I've learned, and it has never gone away, and I keep it at close to my heart, is what's referred to as the five or six stages of retirement. So the first stage is excitement. That's 5 years to retirement. You're excited about retirement. You're excited to not go to work anymore. You're excited that you're going to wake up and I'm going to travel and I'm going to do. You're excited, okay? And then two years to a year to retirement, it becomes a reality. But genuinely, I'm going to wake up and I'm not going to be able to do it. What I've been doing all this time. I'm not going to sit in traffic. What
Yeah.
am I going to do with my life? So then you start being anxious.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem is that in most cases, retirement happens to one person in a department, two people in a department. So it's a very lonely journey. You don't have
Mm.
anybody else that you can bounce ideas on. What are you doing? I'm doing this,
Mm.
and what have you. So then the anxiety kicks in. And then you actually retire. And once you retire, it's that, you know, acceptance. I've actually, I've retired. Like this is me now. And you're realizing and you're accepting the fact that, okay, this is my life now. And then you reorientate. So that's 2 to 3 years. You've forgotten what it feels like to have a boss, what it feels like to have to wake up at 8 o'clock. You've reorientated your life to being a retiree. And then during that phase, 10 years, 15 years down the line, you've established that community because you've reorientated. You've got friends that are also retired, but then some of them, sadly, they start passing on.
Mm.
And that's when, you start facing the fact that you start accepting also that death is a part of this thing called life.
Mm.
And then we move on, if you're lucky enough, to that part where it's dangerous for you to be by yourself, the frail stage. You have to be taken care of because you can't take care of yourself. You're not strong enough to take care of yourself. And during that time, either you go to a home or you stay with your kids and your grandkids and what have you. But then all of those things, it's an emotional roller coaster. It's a psychological roller coaster. There's no financial conversation that we just had just on that, but the financial side needs to be sound. And that's why I love the fact that you said having a financial advisor is critical.
Yeah, 100% critical. And
Yeah.
planning for your retirement and start saving earlier. Listen, I think we cannot emphasize that enough, because yes, you've got that emotional journey, but it is slightly easier if there is enough money to retire.
If
Um,
one less thing to stress about. If I
100%,
There we
100%.
go.
Max, thank you for your time. This is always a topical issue. I'm at the age where that word starts coming up slowly but surely into my life. And it's something that you think a lot about. We all have a purpose in life. If you've got
Mm,
kids, that's your purpose. And then your purpose is work. And then once that is all over, if there's not a lot of thinking around it and conversation around it, you might feel that you have no purpose in life, and that's where things can go really wrong. So very topical issue. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and it's always great to catch up with you.
Thank you so much, Rianet. Thank you very much.